This program is brought to you by the Hstvzim She Leads project with support from Embassy of Ireland in Pretoria.
Hello viewers, welcome to yet another edition of the Rebound series. My name is Farai Mwakutuya. Today's program is brought to you by the Hstvzim She Leads project with support from the Embassy of Ireland in Pretoria. We are focusing on young women in leadership positions. Are they getting access? What are the challenges? What can be done to fix it? Joining me in the studio is Zimbabwe. She's an activist. Alongside her is Tinotenda Chihera. She's a knowledge management, documentation, and advocacy coordinator from the Institute for Young Women's Development. And joining us online via Zoom is Honorable Tatenda Mavetera. She is a member of parliament for the ruling ZANU-PF party. Welcome, guest. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. How are you, Farai? How are you, Zimbabwe?
Great. I want to begin in the studio here, and I'll ask you, Tinotenda. First of all, let's look at the situation in terms of participation of young women in leadership, whether at community level, political level, wherever it is. Paint us a picture in terms of what that looks like.
Well, I think before we even go to, at a national, provincial level, we should look at the way participation even happens in the household, how the woman plays the back role, and this then cascades to a higher level, district, provincial, national. So when you look at it generally, young women are not having enough spaces to participate. And this is quite interesting because women form 52% of the total population, being the majority. And the Zimbabwean demographics will show you that we're a fairly young population, with about 67.7% being young people. So women fall in between this intersection of both young and being women. So they face a double prejudice.
Okay. Let me bring in to the discussion Honorable Tatenda Mavetera. You obviously are in Parliament, a young woman representing the ruling party, but certainly also representing a demographic that has just been talked about here. Could you tell us your experience? How easy was it for you to get to where you are now?
I would like to thank you for that question. It was not really an easy journey for me to be where I am today. But what I then realized was that I looked at myself and I said, what is it that I really want to achieve? I wanted to be able to make sure we are also in the country, limited, or maybe not limited, but because of the few numbers that we're having, especially when it comes to young women's participation in politics, I wanted also to be able to make sure that at least I changed that narrative. Of course, I know only being one, I realized that it was not going to be significant, but I think that change, or just having that one person being there, for me, I realized that it was going to also be able to motivate a lot of other young women to know that they're able to do it. One thing that I think is very, very important, and also that I've also realized, is that whatever people see is what they believe. This journey was not a very easy one, but what I said is I was looking at what I wanted to achieve. I really wanted to make sure that I achieved becoming also a member of parliament, which I believe, because of the patriarchal society that we're living in, is not a very easy thing. But what we need to do is we need to demystify this, and we need to change this narrative.
Indeed. And now that you are there, Honorable, are you getting some sort of mentorship, some sort of guidance from the more seasoned female MPs to say, look, you are here, you are representing young people. This is how the game is played in politics, in parliament, and in leadership.
Indeed, there is never a time that I can say there is no mentorship, because for me to be where I am today is because I saw someone coming in there, and indeed they are actually mentoring us, because mentorship is not only about a person coming there and then saying I'm your mentor. For me, I think mentorship is about you being made to believe in something because of someone. That is, look at it. I have seen a lot of these young women, also these women, also these older women, as we can call them in quotes. They've also motivated us to be where we are today. I would like to tell you that for us, whenever we're going to be speaking about politics, there's never a time we can be speaking of people like Margaret Donko. You know, there are people that have motivated us to be where we are today. So they are indeed mentoring us. They are teaching us each and every single day. I'll tell you, I've got even the likes of Honorable Misai Rambwe. She has always mentored me. She has always been there to also help me and also guide me in certain things. And also I've got even the likes of even Madame Chinomona. There are people that are also motivating us each and every single day. They are guiding us as young people to know what is expected of us. But I think what we also need to move away from is that as young women, we are not supposed to think that the space that we occupy or our space is limited because there are older women that is there. I feel that there is need for us to be having an intergenerational dialogue whereby we exchange notes, whereby we realize that our main challenge is patriarchy and not older women. So as young women, I think that we need to move away from that and say to ourselves, we need our mothers, we need the older women, for them to be mentoring us, for them to be helping us, so that at least when we have this intergenerational dialogue together and united, we'll actually be able to achieve more.
Indeed. Let me come back to you quickly to note that a point that she raises there is very pertinent, where there could be that conflict between young women and older women, where young women feel that we are not being allowed to take up the space because there are these older women who remain there and who are staying. Do you have insights on that? Is that something that is true or happening, and how best can it be managed?
Well, I think the first point of call is for us to realize that the intergenerational conflict is there. And we must also realize that patriarchy on its own is organized, and it has had years and years of success. So simply because someone is a woman does not mean they're not patriarchal. And there are people who are called gatekeepers of patriarchy. And the starting point for us is, of course, I agree with Honorable Mavetera, to have dialogue, to understand where the young women are coming from. I'm going to bring in a very controversial one about the PR, the proportional representation. It simply just says that, there has to be a woman. It doesn't take into account the fact that women are not a homogeneous group. Young women are different, and they face a double jeopardy that must be included when it comes to policy making. So when it comes to PR, it also has to cater for young women as well. And I suppose this is where the supposed conflict comes in, which I think is not necessary. It's a matter of dialogue. And also to say, even with the PR, it means that at a certain point, when someone has had a chance to contest for, to actually come up and take part in the PR, and they've had experience, they've been mentored, etc., they must also pave way for the younger ones who also need that platform. And this is a discussion we must have, and a dialogue, because this has been a point of conflict.
Let me bring in my other guest in the studio. Wongai Zimudzi is an activist. She's a community leader, and maybe you could tell us very quickly your involvement in the community, what leadership role you have. And we've heard from a political leader. Now, as a community leader, what are some of the issues and challenges that could be affecting your participation as a young lady?
Thank you so much. I feel so honored to be in this space where we have the Honorable with us, and her being the guru of information. So I feel my involvement with this space is mainly coming from an everyday life perspective on what people are experiencing every day. At times, the decisions that our leaders, our elected leaders make, they're not really reflective of the demographics. Even in parliament and both in councils, we are still trying to get water coming out of our taps. And it's something that, it's very much pertinent in our society. So my involvement is really now then saying, okay, what is it that people really want? What is it that's actually happening in the communities? let us now then start having conversation on those. And just speaking from a feminist background, I feel that women are at the center of oppression here in Zimbabwe and just globally, where patriarchy is still very much like what you're saying. There's been so many years where patriarchy has been successful. So from my point of experience, the issues that we are facing, they mainly affect women, because they're the ones who have to carry the burden of unpaid care work. And to make it worse, service delivery is very much poor. There are very repressive laws that silence the space or the voice of women. So my job really is probably to go after Honorable Mawetela and saying, why is it that we're having this? Why is it that we're having this?
Indeed, I think, the point you raised there about water, every time I go into some of these areas where water is a challenge, it is the women and young girls that you see queuing up at the boreholes and the wells and things like that. So, and sometimes it's a challenge because they have to do this at night in order to get there early enough. You go under the cover at night, and there are also risks that come with that. We'll continue and pick up on that. I think it's very pertinent. We need to take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue the discussion. It is the Rebound series. My name is Farai Mwakutuya.
Every Zimbabwean wants their country to return to its former glory, and we believe that we have a role to play in doing that. So we'll be speaking to different Zimbabweans from different facets of life to share their views of what it will take to get Zimbabwe to rebound. The Rebound series comes to you every Friday between 5 and 6 p.m. on the Heart and Soul digital platforms. Join me, Farai Mwakutuya, for those incisive discussions.
Welcome back. We continue our discussion here where we are focusing on the young women, their representation, their space, their capacitation to take up leadership roles. Honorable Mawetela, before we went to the break, Bongai raised a very pertinent issue where she's saying, look, you are in parliament, there are issues, there are challenges that affect women, young women, women in general, on a day-to-day basis, issues to do with water, amongst others. As parliamentarians, or when you go into parliament, are you able to push for some of those things to be expedited and to be put at the top of the agenda?
Indeed, that is what we were actually put in parliament to do. One of our major roles is for the representation part. And as women, there is never a time that we can then be able to represent the interests of men more than the way that we represent the interests of women. This is a journey, and it's actually a process, and it's not an event. What happens is, even if you look at issues to do with us coming up with a budget for sanitary ware, it happens on this budget, the last budget that we had. And I think that is something that needs to be applauded. Even the issue of us coming up with 30,000 boreholes being drilled the whole of Zimbabwe. When you look at this, we need to understand what it really goes down well to about. What it does is that it would then be able to lessen the burden, especially for the young girls out there and for all the young women out there. So when we push for that, we are pushing for this so that at least these issues can be addressed. We didn't only do that. We also even pushed for also free, when one is giving birth, for them to be able to free pushed for. We pushed for it. It was pushed by women making. I'll tell you again, we also pushed for 30% when it comes to the Procurement Act. We pushed again for 30% being availed for women out there, so that at least they will be able to take up any contracts, especially in government. But for then women to be able to take it, then is another issue. But the provision is there. We are pushing for this so that at least we'll be able to get more women getting into business. Again, as women, we pushed. I'll tell you, we have got this PR that we're always talking about. And I know there's a lot of outcry, especially from a lot of young women out there who are saying, why did we push for 10? For us, we realize indeed maybe there's that conflict, like what Madam Chera was talking about. This conflict indeed is there, whereby you feel that sometimes whenever we do not engage, the older women might think maybe want to conflict. This is why I was saying we need that conversation, whereby we are saying, there you are, we are accepting that you are there, and also you have also paved the way for us. Why can't we also be able to get to 50-50? I'll tell you, we had quite a great challenge for us to get to just getting 50-50 on the 60 seats which are supposed to be there on PR. But we are glad and happy that at least we managed to get 10. Honorable Misai Rambwi proposed, and I seconded, for us to get 10 seats on the recent amendment of the constitutional amendment number 2, whereby we had 10 seats which were added for the young women, which I think it was an addition because we had 5 seats that had been there, which were alternate on the youth provision for women's quota. So for us, we are so happy that at least we have got 15 seats which are supposed to be benefited by young women out there. So for me, I'm saying this is a journey that we need to be taking upon ourselves to say we will go step by step. We need to foster and we need to push for women's issues so that they can be heard. Thank you.
Tinotenda, do you believe that, I mean, she's obviously just spoken about the more seats that have been created beyond the political space in the community, even in tertiary institutions, wherever it is. You even spoke about the family. Are young women, do they have an appetite to go and take these positions? And are they equipped to go and do that? Do they have the clout, the qualifications? Are they articulate enough to go and defend and fight and argue and do the things that are required?
I'll take the second question first. I am yet to get to a conversation where men are being asked if they're equipped. I'm yet to find a conversation where men are being questioned on their abilities. But put a woman, everyone becomes an academic, even those without the academics to begin with. So what I will say is that definitely women have been organizing for years and years. And I'll go back to the point of whose story gets heard, right? The story of my grandmother in Bohera organizing funerals, organizing a family, organizing in her community does not go out there because knowledge management and information sharing, it's political, it's patriarchal, and it's colonial. So the narrative that women may not have the qualifications or the abilities comes from what we have been fed, comes from the generation of knowledge. So what I will say is that is your answer. Who has told the story?
Indeed, indeed.
And which is why, as women, at the center of our work, we want to tell our own story. And definitely women have the capacity. And as the Institute, when we work with women, we never use the word we are empowering women. Women have the power within them already. We are simply strengthening it, awakening it, raising political consciousness. So that is something we always need to remember, that women have always had the power. It's a matter of rewriting the narrative and showcasing what the women have done already and what more they can do.
Indeed. Very good point. This is a question I'd like to put to all three of you as you know, as we head towards wrapping up the segment. Is there a difference between politician and leader? And how do you balance those? Because, you know,
That's an interesting one, hey? Politician and leader. Leader comes from having the people at the core of what you do and following up. And I would just put these things side by side simply in the Zimbabwean context. See, in Zimbabwe, I mean, we are quite good at coming up with these policies, laws, etc. To me, that's a political game. Now for a leader, they will go on and follow up as to how effective these policies have been. I'll just write on the fact that Honorable Mavetera spoke about free maternal health care. As a policy, sounds great from a political point of view. But as a leader, you would need to go to Guruwe, to Mudindo, and find out what happens when Tinotenda comes and she's pregnant and she wants to give birth. How free is free? Is the doctor there? Are the facilities there? Or it's a free building and I pay for everything else? So to me, the difference between a politician and a leader is a politician focuses on the cosmetic, how it looks to win the numbers. A leader follows up with the people for effectiveness.
Honorable Mavetera, same thing to you. Would you like to just weigh in on that?
I think we need to understand something, that when we're talking about politics and then we're talking about leadership, these are two different things altogether. In that, if you look at what leaders do and what politicians do, it's actually something which is very, very different. A leader is someone who is supposed to be able to take the whole process of being able to give people some. Being able to exercise even servant leadership, being able also to look at issues to do with the nitty-gritties of helping people to become better people. That is a leadership. And then when you're talking about politicians, we need to understand that politics is about influence, is about managing, and it's all about a power game, which then is enshrined in certain individuals. But when you look at it, we need to understand that the roles that politicians have and the roles that leaders have are all two different things. Because at the end of the day, when you're a leader, you're then supposed to be able to lead, you're supposed to be able to plan and also be able to control things for the betterment of the people. That's what a good leader is all about. But when you talk about politicians, I'll tell you, we've got politicians that are there, which are administrative, which doesn't necessarily mean that they're supposed to be having certain traits, which I believe that are supposed to be possessed. I mean, when it comes to Ubuntu or when it comes to human aspects of living. But when it comes to leadership, I think you are confined to you becoming a better person, becoming someone who would then be able to change lives and transform people's lives. For that, I think that is where the difference is when it comes to leadership and then politicians. When you look at politicians, again, I've also realized that politicians, a lot of times, they are people who might not seem to have that human aspect, because what they want is to do something which is supposed to get the numbers, something which is supposed to attract influence for them to then remain in politics. So for me, between a politician, between a leader, they are different people altogether. You cannot necessarily be a politician and then become a leader. You need to be having leadership traits for you to become a good leader.
Well, on that note, Honorable Mawetera, we must take another short break. I'd like to thank you so much for those insights and very passionately speaking about those issues. We must also release you because we have another guest who is joining us online via Zoom. So thank you so much, Honorable Mawetera. And we now take a short break on the Rebound series. Stay tuned. We return shortly.
Every Zimbabwean wants their country to return to its former glory, and we believe that we have a role to play in doing that. So we'll be speaking to different Zimbabweans from different facets of life to share their views of what it will take to get Zimbabwe to rebound. The Rebound series comes to you every Friday between 5 and 6 p.m. on the Heart and Soul digital platforms. Join me, Farai Mwakutuya, for those incisive discussions.
Welcome back. The Rebound series continues. In the studio, I have Wongai Zimudzi, and I will begin with you. Before we went to the break, we were asking politician versus leader. And as a young woman, perhaps which would you like to be?
There's a difference between a politician and a leader. I really like the way that Her Excellency Joyce Banda spoke of leadership. She said that leadership is a love affair, where you genuinely have to love the people that you're serving, and they in turn love you back. So with that definition, if you love someone, you won't allow them to go hungry. You won't allow someone to steal from them. You won't allow someone to loot resources that belong to them. You won't allow them to go to a hospital and they're told that there are no beds. You won't allow them to earn peanuts of a salary because you love them. So this is what leadership is to me. To now then come to say of what is politicians. I think politicians is what we have as Zimbabwe. Politicians are people who overpromise and always underdeliver. Since 1980, we've been having elections, and they come up with brilliant manifestos. 2018, we heard that they were going to be building so many houses. Some said that they're going to create employment. But fast forward to where we are now. Is there something like that that's happening? There's nothing like that. I liked what Honorable Mawetera was saying, that, they were pushing for these things, that they were pushing that women get access to free sanitary way. But then it now then takes leadership, that love affair, to now then make a follow-up of saying, okay, yes, we did propose this, but where are we? If you've been following up on that matter that she spoke about of sanitary pads, there were reports that the government then went and procured panty liners instead of sanitary wear. And as a leader, these are things that you're now supposed to say, no, 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 this is not right. We have been having cases where corruption is rife, where there's massive lootings that's happening in terms of our national resources. Just recently on Twitter, I was reading about millions worth of diamonds that were stolen. And we've got politicians who are in parliament, who are in cabinet, and who are leading certain commissions. And they're just quiet about it, you know. And that is now where the difference comes in, of saying politicians, they don't work. What we need now in Zimbabwe, we now need leaders. We now need people saying, okay, what is it that we can do? I'm genuinely interested in in your life. I'm genuinely interested in you getting a pension once you're done with your career. I'm genuinely interested in your future. I'm genuinely interested with the life that your children are going to have, with your future.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, very passionately and eloquently put there. Now joining us via Zoom, she's the chairperson of the Women's Coalition of Zimbabwe, but she's also the executive director of the Female Student Network. Now, I think it's very pertinent because I would imagine at a student level is where some of these issues, these ethos and principles and values of leadership are instilled and taught. Eva Nice Mnando, thank you so much for joining us on the program. In tertiary institutions, as students, are women being prepared to become leaders of tomorrow?
Female students are not being prepared to become the leaders of tomorrow, but rather the leaders of today. Because today also affects themselves. So if you are talking about tomorrow, maybe tomorrow we might not get there. We have student leaders, female student leaders who are now leaders of today, and they've been student leaders, female student leaders. So in that sense, female students are prepared to take part in community, national, and institutional process now, so that they make a difference and also contribute to the broader spectrum of national development. So if we say we are preparing for tomorrow, I think that phase it's already passed, because we are looking into now and also looking into the future. What is the contribution of young women as students and as female students in tertiary institutions?
Are they being given that space to make that contribution?
Yeah, the place is not always being given. If you are the place, they always it's always very difficult to get that space. So it's not given on a silver platter, but these female students, they really demand for that space. Hence, they are now also participating in leadership, which was a taboo of late, because in student leadership, when you talk about tertiary institutions, it's a male-dominated space. And you talk of years around 2000, even to date, we are now seeing female student leaders or female students occupying big roles in tertiary institutions, especially in the students' representative councils. So the space is not given, the space they have to fight for it, they have to maneuver themselves through, so that at least they get up to get those posts. So it's not easy, it's still difficult, but with that, as we speak right now, we have now female students who are brave enough to even challenge the status quo and take up meaningful positions in the student representative council.
Thank you so much. Let me come back to you, Tinotenda. Often when women become, or I would imagine in these student groups, when women want to go in, young women want to go and take up leadership positions, even in political spheres, there are often labels that are attached to them. They are seen as, and so therefore may not be good wife material, because people say, can I just politics, I'm not going to some and that sort of thing. Do those biases, are those labels real? Is that stigmatization there?
Thank you very much for that. Definitely, that stigmatization is there, and one way or the other, women are being left for the kitchen, for marriage, yet there is so much that women can do.
And do you feel that some of them may then even just accept that role so that they are perceived as not being troublesome or not wife material?
Well, I think when young women and women take up leadership positions, they're destabilizing power. They're taking away power from certain individuals, and that will never be easy. So the easiest baseless thing for someone to attack is your sex life. And like I said, it's very baseless. It's just the same as saying you are a witch, urumurui. Doesn't have any evidence, doesn't hold any water. And these labels are very real. And it's a matter of us as the young women and society in general to actually realize that we have to stand with the women that decide to be bold enough to take up leadership positions. And for us as the Institute, we also take what we call a family-centered approach. That as we are now working with the young women as they are challenging and trying to take up positions in the upcoming 2023 elections, we realize that we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot if we simply just gather the young women and talk to them and strengthen their capacity. We look at it from a family point of view because these women are coming from families and most of the families are male-headed. So even your father will start calling you a wuri, even maybe your boyfriend, your husband, and these are people we need to conscientize. These are ideas we need to challenge. And at the core of it is fighting ideas, not people. But the labels are real, and a lot has to be done, even from a policy point of view, which is why we also welcome the sexual harassment bill that is also coming up. It's a way of attacking so many things that society had normalized, because politics is quite violent for women. Structural violence, sexual violence, subtle violence, and we're hoping that this bill will address these anomalies.
Evan, I want to come back to you because, student leadership and the community approach that has just been mentioned here, I would imagine, and I can remember when I was going to school, my parents telling me that, so when young women want to now become student leaders and be activists and be vocal, I would imagine they'll also be told, that's not the core business why we sent you there. Is this something that you experience, and how can that be overcome?
Yes, it's the truth because of socialization. I think we cannot run away from the fact that women or the society of Zimbabwe is socializing women or young women, even girls, in a way that they should not focus on the things that perceived to be for men. So it's really an issue where this is also playing an integral role in discouraging these young women or female students to take up leadership roles, because some of them, they are already married. They are already coming from a household. And the man or the husband, the spouse is not really ready to have a female, a woman leader who is coming back to his home, also exercising other leadership roles, meeting with others. So I think we change mind and perceptions that our society is ingrained with. But at least they also realize the importance of having women leadership, especially in tertiary institutions, because it's not about books, it's not about academic achievement, but also there are issues that also come on board that are social, that need to be challenged. And if you are not part of the leadership, you are missing the goal. Especially now when we talk about the issues of welfare, when female students are not part of the decision-making processes, even for the welfare of students, there are issues, pertinent issues that affect them. They are left behind. We talk about mental hygiene. For example, I think when we are tackling those issues at institution level, we also realize that male students, they will not really they will not promote the installation of incinerators, for example, as a decision that should be made by universities and colleges, because they don't see the significance of such. And we're having our students taking roles to empty those used sanitary, and it's really hygienic threatening. And for them not to be part of the decision making, to say the priority for this university is to have an incinerator, male students will not see that in that angle. So it's not about satisfying the marriage or satisfying the partnership, satisfying the home, but it's also about your role as an individual when you come to tertiary institutions. And it's also interesting because we as female students network, we also deal with teacher training institutions. And most of them, they are old mothers and also they are married. And it has been a challenge all the time trying to push them to partake into student representative councils because they are afraid that they might lose their marriages. And also in terms of the labeling, to say, how can mukadzi wemunhu sure aonekwa ari pamberi pevana achitaura nyaya idzodzo? It's something that we should educate our society to unlearn, especially the men, because they are the ones who are also having that contributory factor to discourage those women as they go. But I don't think taking up leadership roles in an institution of higher learning would also discourage the issue of pursuing your academic goals. It's also enhancing, because when you are learning, I think you have also an opportunity to meet with the higher office of the authorities that you are not supposed to meet as a general student. So I think for me, it's really an advantage to partake in leadership positions, because you are also privy to the processes and the policies that institute your institution. So yeah, I think we really discuss that, and we encourage our female students to say you need to brave up, you need to get courage, and also be able to convince your spouse that it is really enhancing my academic career in taking up leadership positions in tertiary.
Another very short break coming up. When we come back now, I think we need to look at a way forward, solutions, who is to do what, and how do we push this along? Are there any international, regional, best case scenarios or examples that we can borrow from? It is the Rebound series. We'll be back shortly.
Every Zimbabwean wants their country to return to its former glory, and we believe that we have a role to play in doing that. So we'll be speaking to different Zimbabweans from different facets of life to share their views of what it will take to get Zimbabwe to rebound. The Rebound series comes to you every Friday between 5 and 6 p.m. on the Heart and Soul digital platforms. Join me, Farai Mwakutuya, for those incisive discussions.
Welcome back. The Rebound continues. I have Hstvzim and Tsvangirai in the studio. Hstvzim is a community leader and activist. Tsvangirai is from the Institute for Young Women's Development. And now joining us via Zoom is Evanice Munando. She heads up the Female Students Network in Zimbabwe. Now, as I said, we want to focus on what are the key things that we need to do, the key priorities. Let me begin with you, Wongai. As a young woman who is aspiring or thinking of expanding her role in leadership, what do you wish for, and whose responsibility is it?
Why I'm gasping is because of the experiences that I've had. The journey that I've walked so far, it's been filled with so much hate, with so much pain, even arrests. I'm actually, I'm out on bail. So what needs to be done is, number one, I really would appreciate if our leaders can respect the Constitution, what the Constitution says. If not only respecting it, but giving it room for it to be actually implemented. I would also, it gets lonely because of like what, before we went to the break, what people were saying, that there isn't so much, many women, most women, they're not really interested in this, in standing up for themselves. So it does get lonely at times, because at times you might even say, okay, why can't we raise our voice, for instance, kuti mabhazi ezubwa wedzere. Tese tiri kumira mqueue for more than 2 hours, takamira mqueue tamira mabhazi ezubwa. But I myself, I can't do it because my voice alone is not much effective. But if we collectively do it, and if we stop looking at it from a sexual point of view, she's a woman, so why is she saying that? Because these are issues that are affecting everyone. So if we really could get everyone to, it's not boldness that we do as activists. It's just we get angry and we express our anger in different ways. Same way as you also get angry when you see injustice or when you're experiencing injustice. So we should now then start collectively speaking up with one voice. If you see someone, if you see a young woman speaking up, don't castigate her, support her, join her. Don't
label her.
Don't label her. Yes,
Yeah,
don't.
indeed.
Yeah.
Let me turn to you, Tinotenda. Obviously, your organization is doing quite a lot, but what do you think could be done to enhance that or even scale up the work that you're doing?
Thank you very much for that question. And just to offer, solidarity and support to Mongai to say, in this journey of yours, we as the Institute, we continue to support you and we continue to give you that support that you need so that the journey is not lonely. But as the Institute, there is a lot that we're doing and a lot that can still be done. And firstly, just like what Mongai said, we need life to be given to the Constitution, So I'm going to start off from a legislative and policy making point of view, that we need effective policy, not tokenism such as the PR. That is now making millions of women fight for a slice of cake like this when the cake is this big. And the other cake is now for the men. And, as an institute, we are strategic in the way we go about things, which is why I say the PR system needs to be reflected upon, because now it has caused bigger conflicts amongst women fighting for a small piece and have forgotten about the bigger agenda. So looking at our work, right now we're advocating for a gender equality bill that facilitates for effective participation of young women and women in all spheres of life. That is politics, work, etc. And to politics, I'll also speak to having a 50-50 system. I know the PR is being advocated for so much, but it's really a blinkered and silo view of this whole participation debate. And as the Institute, we also have a current program we are running with, which is the Vote, Run, Reloaded. And the previous Vote, Run, Lead, Mongai was a part of it. And that gave birth to 3 women that effectively then took up elective positions. And many others who took up positions in their ward development committees, in their village development committees, in their clinic committees, in the SDCs at their schools. But we have one that is coming up focusing on the 2023 elections and enhancing capacity of women, increasing their participation in local government and also at national level. And also just to say that when it comes to what needs to be done, the other thing is to change our mindset. And this goes to the broader spectrum of the work of the IWID. We are challenging narratives each and every day in the way we speak, in the way we actually see things. And the other thing we are doing is encouraging mentorship and dialogue between the generations that seem to not be seeing things at the same wavelength. And we are also encouraging us as human beings. Mongai just explicitly put it that it's a lonely journey, So if you have a friend, a family member who is walking this leadership journey, just sending a WhatsApp message. Hi, how are you doing? Do you want to have a conversation? Those are small things that we can do to make sure that our young women and women who are taking up leadership positions remain supported, remain in this journey, and we also need to take care of their mental being as well.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Very lastly, let me turn to you, Eva Nice. Obviously, you are in touch with a lot of these young women in tertiary institutions, know the challenges that they're facing, the aspirations that they have. What can we do, very briefly, to ramp up the work that is being done, to make sure that space is created, opportunities are created, and women, young women, get into these roles of leadership?
Yeah, specifically speaking in tertiary institutions, I think as you may be aware, we've been running through the campaign where we are advocating for the Sexual Harassment Act. We don't want a bill, we want a standalone act that will criminalize sexual harassment, because this is the key aspect which is also hindering our female students to participate in any process, in any institutional process because of cyberbullying, cyber harassment. So we are really happy that the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, together with the Parliament and the Public Service Commission, has taken up our call to really establish a standalone sexual harassment act that would also bring these perpetrators on board. We want to, and we advocate for a learning conducive environment that allow or promote the equal participation of young women, female students, and also deal away with ideologies that promote male supremacy. And in this case, we are also conscientizing our female students and now also engaging male students because from our baseline survey, we also learned that targeting only female students, it was not enough because even the male counterparts, they did not know that they are also perpetrating harassment towards our girls. So it's now a holistic approach where we are involving lecturers, we are involving students, male and female students, so that at least everyone is at par, so that at least when we are talking about these issues, everyone is informed. And also we are enforcing, trying to make sure that authorities enforce the laws that also promote these inequalities that exist in tertiary institutions. We have other institutions that still believe that a vice president's post of the SRC is reserved for a female student, whilst the president's is for a male student. So we are challenging those gendered inequalities or insensitive policies that are there in tertiary institutions, so that at least we create an environment that respects and the dignity of all, not really relegating any party. And also in terms of our training, we also continue to train, build capacity of our female students, because I got you from the beginning of the show that maybe they might be labeled, they don't deliver when they get into leadership. So how can we also infect leadership that is sound, that is also have deliverables at the end of their tenure of office? So we build capacity so that at least they effectively deliver and make decisions that are informed, that also change the environment that also is hindering them in terms of their success. So in terms of mentorship, is something that is ongoing. Solidarity and support, this is a key aspect that we do also as FSA. I would like to support Tinotenda from IWID, because without solidarity and support, these female students, they get discouraged. We've got some students who are of every day being labeled. They are on social media, their pictures are being posted there, and they are discouraged to take up leadership positions. So we do what we call psychosocial support. We counsel them, we get them to really say, how can we build and foster resilience amongst female students so that they are able to challenge the status quo and be able to continue and be the role models in tertiary institutions. Even beyond, we are not looking just there when they are learning parts. How are they also going to contribute to the broader national development, where they are also taking leadership posts in council, as parliamentarians, and also we want to go at higher offices in local governments.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Evanice. I must stop you there because we're out of time. But I want to thank you for sharing that insight and joining us via Zoom. That is Evanice Munando. She is the Executive Director of the Female Students Network in Zimbabwe. Thank you so much for joining us. And in the studio, I had Tinotenda Chiera. Thank you so much. She's the Knowledge Management, Documentation, and Advocacy Coordinator for the Institute for Young Women's Development. Ungai Zimudzi, activist, community leader. Thank you for joining us. And earlier on, Honorable Tatenda Mawaitera, Member of Parliament. This has been an edition of the Rebound series brought to you by the Hstvzim She Leads project with support from the Embassy of Ireland in Pretoria. Thank you so much for tuning in and for choosing us. Join us again next time. Bye-bye.
This program was brought to you by the Hstvzim She Leads project with support from Embassy of Ireland in Pretoria.